welcome to the Footy Interchange. Adam Papalia, Will Schofield with you. Another massive round of footy, a trip to the southwest. How good was that? This is the show, though, that we get right around the country and talk all issues in footy with people in the states who know what's going on the ground in their states as well. So looking forward to chatting right across the league and going through all the issues in the AFL. I, of course, work for a little bit for 6PR and for Fox Footy, covering the games on the weekend. Will Schofield is with me, works across multiple channels, podcaster extraordinaire, boundary rider extraordinaire, special comments extraordinaire, all of that. Scully, welcome to you.
Well, one of us works. I worked on the weekend. I did, what did I do? I had an event at Shelter that I hosted, and then I worked the boundary. Did you work on the weekend?
I did not work on the weekend, which was
the only weekend
very nice.
in the entire footy season you didn't. That's good. You aligned nicely with the Bunbury game.
Yeah, it was good, actually, because I got to get down there and actually just sit in the crowd for a change, which is kind of my only game for the year because I work on every single other one at Optus. So it was really good just to get down and sit behind the goals. I ended up sitting next to your wife as well. Who
She saved your seats.
She saved us some seats. So not intentionally, I don't think, but she spotted me as we were walking, and I was with my kids and we were trying to find somewhere to watch the footy, and she shouted out and they had a couple of spares there, so saved the day for us.
My kids in the Kangaroos jumpers, questionable.
Yes, very. I was quite surprised to see that because there was a couple other kids there. I was trying to figure out whose was whose, and your son was in a North Melbourne jumper.
Both my sons were, actually.
Both were.
So, I mean, I haven't really spoken about this on any of the podcasts, so I thought I'd better mention it on one in case someone was like, what's going on? So Luke Urkard, who got drafted to North Melbourne last year, I coached him in Aquinas, became really close to his family, and Nash got to know him. He came back, must have been in their bye earlier on in the year. It was my first game coaching senior coach, Aquinas.
Yep.
And Luke looked after the boys for the entire game. He was back to watch his old school play, and he's kicking the footy with them, and he's running around the oval with them. So they now love Luke Urquhart. So they had the number 14 North Melbourne jumpers for Luke, not necessarily for the Kangas. And their kids as well. So I was like, yep, go for it, boys.
So were they happy after the game then at the Kangaroos?
Yeah, they won, didn't they? They won.
Dad's a premiership player at West Coast, and now they're Kangaroo supporters because some blokes had a kick with them for half an hour.
Does it matter that much? I don't think it does. I don't think it does at all. Go Kangas.
Go Kangas. Look, what did you make of the day? I enjoyed it being part of the crowd and being able to just sit there and watch a game of footy without having to work on it. Was actually quite relaxing, to be honest. I thought to be part of it.
Yeah, I thought the way the stands were set up, it felt like a really big crowd. I don't know how logistically it went, but from the crowd point of view, and as the game got closer, the crowd was really loud. It was pretty quiet to start with. I think people sort of...
Well, it wasn't the greatest game.
No. It was just like, all that needs to happen is a goal to get kicked.
Yep.
I had to wait till halfway through the second quarter for West Coast to kick theirs. So... yeah, I think it was great. I think it was a tick across the board, and you can stop whinging about North Melbourne selling their game because they won and they got their 4 points.
I was thinking about that halfway through the last when they were behind, thinking, okay, here we go. The true test is this week, though.
Well, it's not because
with the game at Optus Stadium.
It's not at all because, mate, they were going to lose to Freo anyway. If they lost both over here, you would have been tooting your trumpet all the way.
I was winding up halfway through the last quarter thinking, here we go.
So now you can't. Bad luck. No, you can't defend it. No, it's all worth it now because they get the money and the points.
Well, they haven't got both points. Would they still be more a chance of beating Freo over in Melbourne?
Nah.
Yes, they would.
No, because they're not a final side, mate. So
they'd still be more of a chance of beating them in Melbourne.
Nah.
Same with West Coast.
Nah.
Anyway, I think that the Bunbury part of the experiment, we can tick that off because it's a more neutral ground, even though the crowd on the day was still 80, 90% West Coast. The Optus Stadium scenario is a bit different, I still feel, in terms of them giving up that home ground advantage, and we probably will see that this week.
Interesting to see how many people they get there. The crowd they get. I don't really understand how it works. Is it just buy your tickets?
Yep.
Obviously, Freo fans are going to buy a ticket to go to that game.
Yep. I think they get a discount to go along, and Fremantle are trying to help push that as well, obviously, because they want as many fans in the house as they can to help them. But yeah, Freo fans need to buy tickets. So exactly the same as what people in Melbourne have to deal with every week. If it's not your home game and you want to go and see your team play, and they're playing up the road at Marvel or at the MCG, then you can go and buy a ticket to get in the door.
We should do it more then, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean the Bunbury part was excellent. I keep pushing the let's get a third team in WA based out of the southwest, and from everything I saw on the weekend, it could absolutely be viable. Like people were frothing over
Yeah.
the fact that there was footy down there.
Agreed.
And the whole town was buzzing. The whole southwest was buzzing. I knew so many people. It was quite funny just walking through the crowd and just, oh, yeah, seeing old people from school and all that just rolling around.
Celebrity Papalia.
No, not that. Just like literally just people I know from growing up.
Yeah.
It was more the fact around in the southwest. But just chatting to them and about how excited they were that they only had to go 15 minutes up the road to go to a game of footy. So there's no doubt in my mind that a third team would work in WA, particularly based out of the southwest. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on, I think. But great day. Logistically, I think it all went pretty well. The food trucks started to run out of food towards the end of the game. They were like crossing stuff off the menu and getting through, but I think the can bar did pretty well and everyone enjoyed it. So Bunbury, a big tick, well and truly. Sco, we're going to get into the rest of the pod shortly, but I know for you there's something that you wanted to bring up and you wanted to bring this to the agenda to just kick us off today about coaches in the AFL just being a little bit too smart for their own good.
So these are the best coaches in the country, and I'm not challenging that like I or anyone else could not do their jobs. Like they're doing a brilliant job, but I think too often coaches overthink it or they're trying to get too creative. It's a pretty simple game, footy. Play your best players in their best positions, and then filter the players around them. Don't do the other way. Don't try and fit players into spots because you want to get the team balance going. Play your best players in their best position. So. Just this weekend gone, I'll give you some examples, all right?
All right.
Geelong v Gold Coast. Geelong, and also, sorry, if I can just double on that, tag the best players, right? So play your best players where they should be played, and then if you're an oppo coach, tag the best player. So I'll bring Collingwood into it as well. Geelong, Gold Coast. Geelong tagged Gold Coast best two midfielders, Miller and Anderson. Tagged them out of the game and won the game.
Yep.
Alternatively, the only two players that could influence that game other than Jeremy Cameron was Tom Stewart and Max Holmes. Max Holmes had 40, and Tom Stewart had 14 marks. You'll never beat Geelong if you let them do that. So that's a decision made by Gold Coast not to put taggers on those players. Terrible. Zach Merritt tagged on the weekend in the Carlton game. So number one, they tagged their best player. Zach Merritt's their best player by a long way. Brad Scott then put Zach Merritt in the goal square for the entire last quarter because he was trying to do, if he's getting tagged, I'll get him out of the midfield, I'll put someone else in there. He's not Jordan Dawson, Bontempelli you can put forward. He's not a contested marking player. Put him on ball. It doesn't matter if he's getting tagged. Put him on ball. Couldn't believe that. Yesterday, Collingwood, that Melbourne almost won that game because they sacrificed a player to tag Nick Dacos, their best player. Brilliant stuff. What have I missed? There's one more that I mentioned.
Isaac Rankin.
Isaac Rankin for Adelaide v Brisbane. He played the entire first half in the forward pocket. He had 5 touches and 0 impact. Other than Jordan Dawson, Isaac Rankin is Adelaide's best player. Play him on ball. Stop trying to fit other players into the midfield mix. Fit other players around Isaac Rankin. Second half, they put him on ball. He has 14 touches, 5 score involvements, and he and Jordan Dawson and Ben Keys win the game for him.
Yep.
They're best players. Too often, the best players aren't played where they should be being played. And then the oppo doesn't tag it. Like, does my head in. It's easy, mate. Easy game.
So coaches get criticised for not moving the magnets. So a few of these have been done. But you're talking about the absolute best player on the field. Just play him in the best position.
You don't need to flip the magnets on Marcus Bontempelli and Patrick Cripps and Zach Merritt and Isaac Rankin. They're not magnet flippers. Magnet flippers are role players like Schofield and others where you need to throw some things around. Not your best players. Just play them forever in their best spot. Good?
Simple.
Great.
Simple. All right, we're off to a good start. This is the Footy Interchange. We're going to get right around the country and check in with all of our experts in each and every state right around the country where we're going to talk some footy throughout the rest of it. Of course, you can always drop us some questions in the YouTube comments as well or hit us up on social media too. We'll give you some more details on that. But let's get stuck into it. This is the Footy Interchange. Let's head to Victoria where we check in with Drew Jones. We missed him last week, but great to have him back on. And I think the reason why we missed him last week is because he was too busy at the printing press getting the merchandise ready to go for Goat Fantasy. For those watching on YouTube, have a look at that jumper with the Goat Fantasy logo ready to go. How nice is that? Your fantasy companion. Indeed. That's a very interesting tagline you got there, Drew. Great to chat to you, mate. Talk all things footy. What range of merch have you got coming out? Is it just
Who's
a
your
jumper or what?
fantasy companion, Paps?
I feel uncomfortable answering that, mate, to be honest.
You're mine, Drew.
Thank you, Sky. Appreciate that. Look, I went to the sunny coast for a week off. This was conveniently in the mail when I returned home to Victoria because it was literally 15 degrees cooler, so I could put the jumper straight on. So,
Looks very good.
yeah, we're feeling good.
Looks very good. Goat Fantasy is going very, very well too with all the latest fantasy news. We'll talk that in just a second. But firstly, news circling around as we record this. It's pretty imminent. We think that Luke Beveridge is going to sign a new deal with the Western Bulldogs. No secrets here. This one's been talked about. They've just been hammering out the finer details over the last few weeks.
Yeah, so it looks like a 2-year extension for Luke Beveridge, which I think we all expected that to be confirmed over this middle part of the season, but it really has gained momentum over the last few weeks. The stability and balance that Bevo has been able to produce at the footy club over the last year or so, after a tumultuous couple of years, I think has been really important. And it looks like he's got the squad in a really good spot to compete for flags again. So, we're seeing Darcy returning from injury this week, things looking up. And I know there's been some off-field stuff with Bailey Smith and then Jamari Ugle-Hagan, but he seems like he's been able to navigate the club through those difficult times quite well. And then I guess the irony is that they probably haven't played their best the last couple of weeks, and now he gets the contract extension, but it'll be freshly minted for Thursday night footy against St Kilda.
Very good. Hopefully Sam Darcy returns in that one. That would just be an amazing comeback. What I enjoyed yesterday at the footy for a Monday game was post-game effectively Max Gawn v Steven May, and then tell us how good Collingwood is as well. What's going on down there in bloody Demon Land?
Yeah, so the way that it seems like it's played out is probably not too hard to deduce here, in that Steven May is a competitive beast. And in that last 30 seconds, Max, unfortunately, you had the right idea about after the intercept mark trying to probably pretty much nail a torp right down the middle of the MCG to give the Demons a chance to win, but just got rushed into it with the umpire calling play on, ends up shanking it off the instep, and then Will Hoskin-Elliott takes that mark, which effectively ends the game. So Steven May just coming across to be like, what are you doing, mate? Like, what happened? And maybe it was just a little too soon, and Max just responds with the shove back, and they certainly didn't look like they wanted to break bread in the aftermath of that game, but then supposedly apparently they worked it out in the change rooms after the game. But Scully, I know exactly what you're going to say about this, but I just wanted to put it to you. How soon is too soon to start questioning a player's decision-making on the field in that situation?
I probably have an unpopular opinion here. I reckon Max would look back on that and think I shouldn't have reacted like that. And I think like Steve would do the same. I shouldn't have gone to him. Like, the game was still on. The siren hadn't gone. But I actually think it was the correct feedback. Like, what do you, like, it's not an excuse because you got rushed into it. Like, trying to kick a torp across the middle of the ground, it's not going to help you win, like whatever you're thinking. So, but the feedback probably needs to come post-game. How soon too soon? Well, never on a football field. It needs to be immediate. And so you don't have a chance to hold a meeting and, kumbaya each other. You just direct, and that's what ends up happening. And there wouldn't be an issue at all. But both would look back on that and be like, yeah, I didn't quite get that right, I don't think.
I get the sense that Max, we know that there's been some off-field stuff with family illness that he's been dealing with. And I think you throw in a number of other things in terms of the fact that he has carried a very heavy load for the football club when they've gone through a difficult period. To me, that was an insight into perhaps some of the tension that has been built up behind the scenes for Max. You just see it in that one moment. And also, I think the Big Freeze game means a lot to him. He put in a gargantuan performance against Darcy Cameron to nearly drag his team over the line. And the fact that he was in part responsible for the game being sealed for Collingwood would have frustrated him a lot, because I know how much it means to him to perform on Neil Danaher's day. And just from a Collingwood perspective, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. I think Craig McRae is a fantastic coach, but the fact that they've identified over the off-season that an area of need for them was a bit more spark and a bit of bounce off half-back, what Brisbane did last season to win the flag. So you put Josh Dacos to a permanent half-back flank, you bring Dan Houston to the footy club, and straight away you've got two gun half-backs. There's an argument that Josh Dacos could be an All-Australian half-backer this year, wins the medal yesterday. So I think just straight away, great list management, great identification of where the team can get better. And then just back your strengths. Pendlebury inside bottom, in the middle, playing their natural positions. Doesn't matter how old they are, and then they continue to produce. We saw that yesterday. They were both great. I think they're just absolutely nailing it and deserve to be premiership favourites.
Yeah, it was a great occasion yesterday and a thriller as well. We look ahead to the next round. You touched on it before, the Dogs against the Saints. It's a pretty big game for both of these teams who would really want to put in a good showing.
Yeah, St Kilda, if they are realistic about sneaking into the finals, they need to win this game, and then the Dogs will want to bounce back. They're 6-6. There was probably a thought a few weeks ago, could this be the first time they finish in the top 4 during the regular season under Luke Beveridge? But they need to really get going if they want to do that. So as far as I'm been told, Sam Darcy will be back for Thursday night, which is a tremendous story. He actually injured himself against the Saints in round 6. So that was just 52 days ago that these two teams last played. It was a big win for the Dogs, about 70 points, but Darcy got injured that game. But really, Darcy feels like the difference between the Dogs being, not an also-ran, but probably not a genuine premiership contender to a guy that could kick 5 on grand final day, and lift the cup for the Dogs. So massive in for them. And then Jack McRae comes back after that punctured lung. So I'm really looking forward to Thursday night.
Goat Fantasy. I've been bringing in some bargain buys. That's what I'm doing this week. What are you doing?
Mid-season, mid-price madness.
Yes.
That's where we're at this week. So I've got a list of names. Top of the list is Sam Docherty. He's playing half-back again for Carlton. They've already had their bye, so he can play right through this little period. 821 in AFL Fantasy, 403 in Supercoach. Bargain, and he's been a fantasy gun in the past. Colby McKercher at North Melbourne. He's moved back into the back line. 140 in Supercoach last week, 35 disposals. He's cheap as chips, 633. You can get him into your midfield or your back line. And then Miles Bergman doing a job in the midfield for Port Adelaide. Just got to wait to see if Vaughan Francis returns as to whether that changes his role at all. But again, 770, cheap as chips, and he's had his bye. And then Cooper Lord is a bit of a Hail Mary, but playing that midfield role for Carlton and very cheap in your forward line. And if you've traded out Caleb Daniel earlier, now that Harry Sheasel is back in the midfield, there's a bit more ball for Caleb again in the back line. You can get him in as a forward again. He's had his bye. So there's lots of cheap options. Not many rookies I like this week. So if you can find a way to move around some of those mid-price guys and fill out your 22, I think that's the way to go.
Just keep your eye on over the West here, Drew. I know you're a big West Coast man. Just keep your eye on any mid-season draftees potentially making debuts this week. Not anything I've heard. I'm just saying keep your eye on it, mate.
Okay, I like it. And just one for you to finish off.
Yes.
I was going to say it's reporter etiquette, but it's also just friendship etiquette. I just wanted to clarify this and whether you think this is acceptable. Generally, after maybe a Thursday night or Friday night, you've done your live crosses, your work's out of the way. There's a bottle-o that's close to both Marvel Stadium and the MCG, which you can pop by just for a traveller, for a roadie. If it's your buy and you go into the bottle shop and you come back with a mid-strength beer as your purchase, do we think that's acceptable and okay?
Who's done that?
Who are you throwing under the bus here?
You know who's done.
Is this Zeta? Is this Zeta?
This is Asahi 3.5 Zeta.
Wow. Hey, look, if you want a mid-strength, that's great, but don't put that on someone else, I would say.
Yeah.
No, that's a personal decision which you do not. You don't do it for the whole. You don't do it for the whole group. Anyway, I just wanted to clear that
You
up.
come back with both options. If you're wanting a mid-strength, you come back with both, well and truly. Love your work, Drew, as always, mate. People can check out Goat Fantasy if they want to get their season back on track like me or keep it going well like Scully. Thanks very much, mate.
On your boys.
Drew Jones there with the latest out of Victoria and all your fantasy news via Goat Fantasy. Let's head to sunny Queensland, check in with Tom Rockliff, of course, our man over there. Rockliff Finance for all your finance need. 200 gamer in the AFL, and he joins us right now to talk all things Queensland footy. Tom, great to chat to you, mate. Brisbane Lions, we've spoken right throughout this season about how they've been a bit up and down. We've seen some of their best and then some of their worst footy. It was a bit of a thriller in the wet all the way back earlier on against the Crows. But if they just kicked a little straighter, it might have been a different feeling. Where do you feel they're at right now, and have got a couple of big weeks coming up?
Yeah, it's still hard to get a gauge, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of teams competing for that number 2 seed now. I think Collingwood have cemented themselves as the number 1 seed in the competition. Then there's a bit of jostling behind them. The Lions had an opportunity to win that game of footy, as you're seeing in the last quarter, but couldn't get the job done. And to the Crows' credits, to their credit, they defended well. But a massive couple of weeks for the Lions. It's hard to know what to make of them at the moment. That, as you said, their best is as good as anyone in the competition, but they seem to be only stringing it together for a 20, 25-minute period and then let the opposition back into it. So Oscar McInerney potentially comes back in this week as well, which strengthens them through the ruck. But massive fortnight for them, the Giants on Saturday afternoon, and then Geelong on a Friday night before their bye. So that they need to make sure that they get the job done on Saturday afternoon. You wouldn't want to go into a bye potentially on the back of 3 losses. So, a massive game Saturday afternoon. I think they'll be cherry right back on their home deck in hopefully some sunshine.
Yeah, so I agree with you. We'll know a lot about Brisbane after these next 2 weeks because they go in with 3 losses in a row and suddenly they're back to the pack. So a big couple of games coming up. What about the Suns, mate? They've got their bye this weekend. How are they tracking? Because they were poor against Geelong.
Yeah, they were. I mean, they were in that game for a long period, but again, they look just a little bit tired at the moment, Scully. So I think the bye's probably come for them at the right time. We know they've been on the road a lot. They've only played the 3 games up here on the Gold Coast. So it's a good opportunity for them to reset this week. Obviously, spending a week up in Darwin, on the road a fair bit. So I think they look a little bit tired. Obviously, that big hit to Noah Anderson as well. So it gives him a chance to recover and get ready. And the other one, sort of the one that's bubbling away under the surface, is your man, Matty Rowell, still yet to put pen to paper. So the longer that drags on, potentially a slight concern for the Gold Coast Suns. From all reports, he's really happy there, and all indicators sort of suggest that he will re-sign. But until that pen goes to paper, you never know. But I think that the bye comes at the right time for them to reset for the back half of the season.
Hey, this is a question without notice. Off the top of the show, I had a clip across the bows of coaches sort of getting too smart for themselves and not playing the best players in the best positions, and also 2, not tagging the best players. So if we talk about Gold Coast, Geelong tagged Anderson and Tuke Miller, and Gold Coast did nothing about Max Holmes and Tom Stewart. Where do you sit on taggers? I'm assuming that you would have had a few in your time come to you. I've never seen one, but how do you feel about taggers? Do you think it's a tool in the game that needs to be used more, or are you like, nah, can't have them?
Yeah, taggers, they tried to come to me, Scully, but I used to break them with my elite speed, so they couldn't go with me back in the day. But, they executed perfectly, Geelong, and it was Atkins as well, went to Reilly at the stoppages, so they went with a 3-prong attack and executed them all perfectly. And I mean, you've got to be able to go to opposition players, and we've seen it yesterday with Langmead go to Dacos and just shut him out completely. So I learnt my craft in my first couple of years by going and shadowing the best midfielders in the competition. So I think it's a really good ploy and strategy. I think we've probably stepped away from it, but if you can execute those roles, even Friday night, you talk about Brisbane, Benny Keys went to Dane Zorko, played a really pivotal role to taking out, negating his influence with his ball movement. So I think it's really important that you put plenty of time into the opposition, make sure that you take away their weapons, and they have got it wrong. And when you speak about coaches not playing, I see the Bevo's re-signed, but you got Tom Liberatore playing off a half-back flank on Thursday night against Hawthorn. What are we doing? He's an inside midfielder. Play them in their best positions. Give yourself every opportunity to win the games of footy. And I think coaches, the problem with it is, Scully, that sometimes they have too much time on their hands and they come up with these grand ideas and they sit in match committee for 2.5 hours and they walk out and go, oh, that's a good idea. And then comes a game day and it doesn't work. So I think tagging's got a really important role, and coaches sometimes need to just go back to the basics.
Well said, Tommy. Great to chat to you as always, mate.
Rangers.
Tom Rockliff there with all the news out of Queensland, and echoing Scully's sentiments there about, coaches just convincing themselves a little bit too much, Scully.
See, I miss Tom Liberatore. I didn't say that because I was doing something Thursday night. I can't remember. Tom Liberatore not as an inside midfielder. What are we doing? He's one of the best inside midfielders in the comp on a back flag.
What's the Seinfeld quote?
Bevo. I don't know.
Believe it, it's not a lie.
Correct.
So it was a bit like that. They convince themselves of it.
Here's a 2-year contract. See you later.
Brilliant stuff. Great to have a chat to Tom Rockliff over there in Queensland. Let's head to South Australia where we check in with Sim Thomas-Wilson, of course, from the Adelaide Advertiser and from Code Sports, and feeling a little rosier about footy in the city of Churches right now. Sim, let's start with the Crows first. I think everyone's starting to believe that they might be legit. That was a great win over the Lions.
Yep. Hey, guys. 12 months to the day since they lost to Richmond last year, who ended up being the Wooden Spooners, and all hell broke loose in Adelaide after that loss. People were calling for reviews, sackings, saying it was a boys' club, saying the Crows were cooked. And now 12 months later, they've knocked off the reigning premiers. And it really looked like they could do something this season and going forward.
Sim, I want to ask you a question without notice. I said this on one of my podcasts yesterday. Is Jordan Dawson the greatest ever trade? I'm talking ever. Like, they got him for one first rounder from Sydney when, he wasn't the captain of Sydney. And within 12 months, he became the captain. And what he did in the game on the weekend, like, he single-handedly won that game in 5 minutes of footy. Like, do you think he's the greatest ever trade? I do.
I saw you say that, and I was actually going to bring it up myself. I reckon definitely greatest ever trade for Adelaide. Like, that is maybe, did they trade to get McLeod? I don't know. Maybe, that is. But it is such a good trade when you think about it. He was a guy that had shown a little bit for Sydney. He's playing on wing a fair bit. His NEFL numbers were amazing. So obviously he had a little bit of he could maybe get the ball and all that. But he came in and he's from the get-go, he's been incredible for them. And you see why Port also went from him as well. And they were actually quite disappointed they didn't get him. So he's probably one of the better trades in modern times. Definitely.
I need you to do some research and find out what the best trade is, though, because I can't beat it right now. Have you got something on your mind that you beat him?
Not off the top of my head, but I'll have a think.
Yeah, good.
Report back to us next week. Is the lid completely off with the Crows now? I mean, after that win, all weekend, the Crows supporters would have been thinking about last Saturday in September type vibes.
They're playing like they could get there. Like, they've answered every question of us so far. Like, question is, could they return to finals? The first question, looks like they are, unless a catastrophe happens, but they should have there. Then the second question, can they win on the road? They can now. They destroyed Sydney. Is their defence good enough? Their defence has been incredible since Gavin around. It's been, I think, the best rated defence. Held up against Brisbane. Like, Brisbane did waste some stuff, but the fact is the Crows held up again. They've been able to hold up in those last quarters when teams have been coming at them. And the final one, could they beat a top team? So they're answering all the questions that are coming at them. And I think Crows fans should be getting really excited because it seems like definitely something's about this team.
And I think, did they just lose to Gold Coast as well? Did they lose that or win that? They just lost that to at Gold Coast. If you put that win in there as well, they're setting second on the ladder. Port Adelaide back on the winners list. Is Ken Hinkley going to get an extension now, or what's sort of happening?
I'll tell you what, he just finds a way to survive, Kenny, doesn't he? But I think we kind of maybe expected them to come out. They had to play better than they would after the bye. GWS weren't great themselves, but they seem like they addressed some issues. Like, their intensity and pressure was a lot better, like a lot better than it has been. And the good thing for them is they don't get some players back soon. Like, Horn Francis will be back this week. Lukosius isn't too far away, so you get two pretty good players there. And they got their next 3 games. It's Melbourne, Sydney, and Carlton, all at Adelaide Oval. So the season's got a pulse. I think if they got to finals, they wouldn't actually do that much. But it's got a pulse at least.
I reckon what they've done, Paps, with Miles Bergman, it reminds me a lot of Bailey Dale, or maybe even Ed Richards, like either at the Bulldogs when they started playing them a little bit inside. Probably more Ed Richards, to be honest. They sort of played Ed Richards sort of forward, sort of back. He was a good player, and then they had some injuries and they put him inside. I reckon Miles Bergman has sort of been the beneficiary of Horn Francis out and getting more inside minutes. He looks great.
Yeah, and also this maybe the cynical one, maybe a little bit of part of trying to keep him at Alberton long term. He still hasn't signed that deal, and he's wanted to be a midfielder for a long, long time. I can tell you, I think there was So there was like an educational, they got like an educational program, and they had like, the players introducing themselves, and Miles Bergman goes, "Oh, I'm Miles Bergman, I'm a midfielder." And he hadn't played any midfield.
Nice.
So he's been wanting to play midfield for a long time. Obviously, Connor Rosie's gone back to halfback. So yeah, is that going to be part of the way they try and keep him as well? But it is like Miles Bergman is a great player. He's so versatile. He can do so many jobs. So you see why clubs really want him, including forward.
Great stuff, Sim. Always good to chat. Footy looking a little bit rosier over there in South Australia. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Sim Thomas-Wilson there from the Adelaide Advertiser and from Code Sports. Scully. Ken Hinkley was a little bit upset as well with the scheduling of that game. It got down to like 0 degrees in Canberra, and it was a night game.
What's he want? He wants it's too cold.
Yeah, too cold. Just play it during the day.
No, he didn't.
He did.
Mate, he's a master of just like talking about something that doesn't mean anything.
Well, they won the game too.
Too cold.
Well,
Ken.
Yeah, we said, why are we playing at night time in Canberra?
I don't know. Just get some people out and have a beer.
Get down to zero.
Just worry about
0 degrees.
Just play footy, Ken. Come on.
Remember Clarko when he was running around with his shirt off in Canberra when it was snowing a few years ago?
That's right. But like, I reckon Ken's got a couple of bullets held for some people on the way out here.
Ready to go.
I reckon I'm getting those sorts of vibes.
So he's ticked off the AFL schedulers. Just keep an eye on it next couple of weeks. Just so he's going to tick off on the way through.
After some wins as well. That's when he starts rolling them out. The head wobbling a bit.
Might have a pulse of power. It's very faint at the moment, but we'll see. There's still
That's
two
a
games.
faint pulse.
2 games outside of the 8 right now. They'll take a fair bit of work to do to completely get back into it. But great to chat to Sim there over in Adelaide. The footy interchange. Well, let's look around Western Australian footy news right now. Of course, Freo getting back into things after a bye. The Eagles have been down there in Bunbury. We've got a double header at Optus Stadium this weekend, which excited about 2 games of footy in the West this week. Eliza Reilly is with us from Code Sports for all the latest stuff out of Western Australia. Eliza, been a lot of travel for you. Singapore, down to Bunbury, back to Perth now, ready to go, refreshed after a little mid-season breakaway as well. Want to talk to you first. It seemed a little strange, more than a little strange, and Andrew McQualter's addressed it as well, but having a sub up your sleeve when a team's rolling over the top of you and you only use them for 8 minutes of game time.
Yeah, this was pretty bizarre on the weekend, the whole Bo Allen situation, which, as you mentioned, Andrew McQualter has taken ownership of and put his hand up and said they made a bit of a mistake there, leaving him on the bench until so late in the game when, as you mentioned, fresh legs could have come on and made a difference against the Kangaroos when they rallied and kicked the final 4 goals of the game. But I guess that's the tyranny of being a young coach in your first season at the AFL level. And I think we've seen a few sort of mistakes from Andrew McQualter so far this season. I mean, there was the treatment of Harry Edwards early in the year. Obviously played a few games and was dropped and culminated in GWS spearhead Jesse Hogan kicking 9 goals on the debutant Sandy Brock. So there's been a few strange selection decisions with Tom Gross showing some pretty good form and then being relegated to sub. It's just something that he's going to continue to find his feet at the senior level, but there, I think, has been a few missteps so far, and that's certainly one of them. The key is you learn from them as a senior coach and you make sure going forward that you probably don't leave a player on the bench right up until the final crux of the game.
I was highly critical of the Harry Edwards one you just spoke about, Eliza, but if I can just, without hindsight, like Harry Edwards has come back into the side and he's played really good footy. So
yeah,
they got it wrong in playing Sandy Brock on Jesse Hogan, but it's because they don't have any other defenders. They got it right in dropping Harry Edwards because what he did against Nick Larkey was that was his best game at AFL level, I reckon, what he played on the weekend. So in light of all that, I think the area is that their list still isn't deep enough. I've seen some rumours that they're chasing some players. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, there's been a few rumours in the last few days, but it sounds like the Eagles recruitment team and list management is zeroing in on a young midfielder, someone who can come in and have an impact straight away, but still has a fair bit of time in their career to learn and grow and be a part of this club for the long term. And some of the names have been thrown up, being Neil Erasmus, Angus Sheldrick over at Sydney, and even Will Phillips from North Melbourne, the side West Coast obviously played on the weekend. He can't get a look in at the moment for the Kangaroos, but it sounds like all 3 of those guys on West Coast recruiting radar as they attempt to sort of bridge that age gap in their list, because we know they are one of the youngest and least experienced lists in the competition. So someone who is a few years into their career but not established yet in the senior midfield, who they can pick up on the cheap, can come in and have an impact. But it is going to be interesting to see what unfolds at the end of the season, because I think in Erasmus and Sheldrick's case, their preference probably is to stay with the clubs they're currently at, being Sydney and Fremantle, and fight their way back into the team. But in Erasmus's case, you think back a few years ago, and he was actually a member of West Coast NGA, and I think there was a paperwork kerfuffle, which meant that the Eagles didn't actually get rights to him at the draft at the time. So it's remarkable to think that it could be a sort of 360 and he eventually finds his way to the Eagles.
It seems to be a fair few of those types of things, Eliza, over the last few years.
Sounds a bit West Coast to
Yeah,
me.
it does over the last few years. I think anyone with a West Australian birth certificate would certainly be looked at from the Eagles right now as they try to make their way up the table. Looking across at Freo coming off the bye, that had such solid form leading into it that maybe the bye wasn't at the best time for them, given they were on a bit of a roll. How do you expect them to perform, and how have they performed coming off a bye?
Yeah, starting there, in their last 4 games coming off a bye, they're 1-3. So Fremantle's form coming out of a break hasn't exactly been up there, but I think it's probably speaks a little bit to the immaturity they've experienced in previous years. And we know they are, again, one of the youngest lists in the competition. So it might be a bit of a symptom of that. But based on the way the Dockers attacked the season heading into the bye, hopefully we do see a bit of a coming of age performance, and they do hold steady against North Melbourne on the weekend, because it's going to be a game they're widely expected to win based on their form coming into the bye. But these are the sort of banana peel games that Fremantle have had a tendency to slip up in the past. So it's another really important game. It's actually a away game for them, which is bizarre to say, but they're expecting hopefully a crowd of around 40,000, predominantly you'd say Fremantle supporters, despite it being a North Melbourne home game, who can get them over the line.
Hey, Eliza, I know it's only earlier in the week, but I'm just thinking back to the last time they played. Do you think Nat Fyfe potentially did some work over the weekend just gone, and is a chance to play at least that sub role or more?
Yeah, you'd think so. Even though it's a bye, we know that the players still are full-time professional athletes and have to put in the work over the break. And even someone like Sean Darcy as well, you'd think you'd put him in that same basket, given he's had such an interrupted season so far. So you'd anticipate that both of those guys have put in a bit of work and used that bye to do maybe a bit of a mini pre-season and really build their fitness up for what's going to be an important back end of the year to see if Fremantle can remain in that finals mix and solidify their spot in the top 8.
Brilliant stuff, Eliza. As always, great to chat.
Thanks, guys.
Eliza Reilly there with all the latest news out of the West. The Footy Interchange, we've got a treat for you now, because we weren't sure if we were going to get to Cal Sinclair today to talk all things New South Wales footy. And I wasn't sure if that was because it's going so badly over there right now that he was actually escaping the state. But I believe he's headed west. He might have landed in Perth. And he's not on the plane, I don't think, for those looking on YouTube. Where in the world are you, Callum Sinclair?
I've joined the Mile High Club. I thought I'd do I thought I'd do today's report for the bar. No, I'm not. I am on the Sky bus. I am landed in Perth, but I probably am the first New South Wales reporter to, I guess, broadcast on New South Wales on your home soil, there, guys. So fire away
From the bus. You know, there's a train too into the city these days.
Perth love train stations and they love building them, but no one uses them. It's the funniest thing ever.
That's good.
Very good. We're off to a good start. Let's talk some New South Wales footy, because it's not going all that well. But the Sydney Swans, they've been a big story this year, really, but some survival games coming up for them.
Yeah, certainly. I thought on the weekend it was obviously a good turnaround from obviously one of the more disappointing games of the season across the entire competition against the Crows last week. It was a game that, you know, they had to win, and quite frankly that they should have. So they delivered on the day. I think Nick Blakey got to his best, but their next couple of weeks is going to be very difficult. They've got Port Adelaide, who've kind of hit a little bit of form against the Bulldogs there, and then also soon after that they've got Fremantle, who have also in also in some quality form as well. So interesting couple of weeks ahead for them. But I think the season's kind of done and dusted, unfortunately.
I got to be honest, this is the best studio cross I've ever done in my life. You can see he's taking the turns and the bumps. It's absolutely, there's probably some poor person in front of him.
It sums up New South Wales football at the moment.
Are you on the bus or are you off the bus? Cal, is there anyone else on the bus, and are they enjoying your analysis so far?
There's a lot of headphones on there at the moment, so they're loving my... I know how I am.
You're that good, Sinclair. Absolutely love it. We need more of you. Jamar Ugle-Hagan, should Sydney consider getting this young man to the football club?
Well, I think there's a lot of talk around. They certainly need someone who's stable up forward. To always be that kind of key forward target. They're not quite getting it with Amadi, who just can't get out of the park at the moment. McLean gets his shots on goal, but he just doesn't capitalise. But Ugle-Hagan's an interesting one. We all know he's got incredible talent. I'm pretty confident. I reckon they've met with him and they've had a few conversations, but they need stability down there. And if you've got to pay someone the big money, you want to make sure they're at training first and foremost. And then secondly, you want to make sure they're out there on game day. But I think he's got a fair bit of work. He would be useful to them, but I think there's a fair bit of water under the bridge. If I'm a betting man, I wouldn't think the Swans would go for him, just given his current behaviour.
The Giants, looking across at them, disappointing loss really for them up in Canberra, where they usually play pretty well and enjoy going up there. They're in danger of falling out of the 8 right now. They've got a couple of tough games coming up.
Yeah, probably a month ago, I was very bullish on the Giants, and I generally believe that they're at their best. They're a top 2 team, but their inconsistencies this year has been extremely disappointing. The midfield depth on the weekend, I think, got really shown up with Butters and Rosie absolutely putting an absolute clinic up there. But outside of, I guess, Tom Green, they just don't have much depth in that midfield at the moment. So they've once again got a pretty, I guess, interesting couple of weeks coming up. But you are right, they are significantly at risk of, I guess, falling out of the 8. So there must be something in the water in New South Wales at the moment. We're all allergic to the footy and, just can't do a thing right. But big few weeks ahead for the Giants. But I still believe their best footy is a top 2 team, but at the moment they're just far from it.
All right, Cinco, we don't want you to miss your stop, mate, so we'll let you get back to the bus ride and we'll leave it there for the footy interchange, mate. Thanks for joining us from Western Australia, mate. We appreciate it.
No worries. Have a chat to air traffic control. No one can land their planes in this bloody state.
He's been doing circles at the airport.
Just cruise on a bus into the city as well. Cal, thank you. He's gone. We've got to add to his intro. The man who travels by bus, Cal Sinclair.
I would add to that top 3 funniest players I've played with. Like, he is just a funny man. It was actually we did the podcast together before it was BackChat.
Yes, when it first.
It was Squawk Talk.
Squawk Talk.
It was Cale Morton.
Yep.
And then not sure what happened there, and then we went to something with me and Sinker. Yeah, and then I think he got traded and went to Butsy.
And that was it.
Yeah, correct.
Very good value there, and I wish we had a camera just looking around the bus just to see if anyone was paying attention.
G'day, mate. How's it going? He's an idiot.
Cal Sinclair there, reporting about New South Wales footy live from Western Australia on the bus. We've reached some new heights here on the Footy Interchange. The Footy Interchange, let's get into the injury update. Thanks to Frontrunner Physiotherapy with Steve Gravina, of course, former physio in the AFL, who brings us up to date with all the latest injury news and more importantly, answers our questions too on how to actually deal with some of these and how the clubs might be dealing with them as well. Steve, great to chat to you as always, mate. Thankfully, not too many really serious injuries out of the weekend, but there was a few players copping some big hits, and that's all part of the management process as well.
Yeah. Thankfully, nothing major reported straight up. But yeah, a couple of common themes with the collision-based injuries over the weekend. So yeah, it'd be interesting to chat through a few of them. I guess over here in the west in Bunbury, big Charlie Comben copped a big knee to his upper back. Looked like it got him right in the shoulder blade, which can be pretty nasty at times. Sometimes the force is great enough to create a fracture of the scapula. That can either be conservatively managed or sometimes can need a pin and a plate to stabilise it. But, yeah, it's really high force, when you're backing back into a pack and then the force is coming from the other end with a knee. Can be strong enough to create a crack there. Nothing's been reported. So hopefully he's all good, but sometimes that can mean a fair bit of time off afterwards.
So let's just say it is fractured. That sounds bad. Like, can that be a 6-week injury? Like, what if it's a fractured scapula? How many weeks out is that?
Yeah, if it's a decent sized crack, more than 6 weeks a lot of the time. Those ones can be sort of 8 to 10.
Oh.
The scapula is almost like a floating bone above your ribs, so it can be inherently unstable and hard to manage. Like, you put yourself in a sling, but it's not like you can put plaster and a splint around it. So sometimes it needs a bit more time to heal. Sometimes the crack is bad that it becomes actually unstable and can need surgery, which would probably be the season. But it depends on the severity of the injury.
Doesn't sound like sleeping would be too good either. Nothing around the shoulders is very easy to sleep with. Toby Greene got subbed out of the game at halftime. Looked like a big corky, sort of upper glute hip area. How did you read that one?
Yeah, it looked really painful. So again, direct trauma to an area where the upper part of your hip and glute isn't that well protected by soft tissue. So it can either be a sort of a knee into the bone around your pelvis, or the classic hip pointer that you might have heard of. They're really painful and can be really debilitating. Or it can just be a corky or a contusion to the gluteal muscles. Again, it's an area which can bleed quite a lot. And then the blood can track down the leg. So I remember Brad Shepherd had a pretty bad one where he might have missed 2 or 3 weeks. And, there's always the adage that you don't miss a week with a corky. But some of these ones can be quite bad and debilitating. So it'll be a race against time for Toby. Now, he's got 7-day turnaround. The initial post-injury protocols will go into place where he would have, been on medication and ice management to help with his pain overnight and the next day. They would have got imaging to make sure that there was no, again, massive trauma to the bone and no little crack there, or the extent of the bleed going into the gluteal muscles and below. And then by, Monday, where he's really a decision, you've got 5 days to turn that around, you can start to get a bit more of an active recovery approach going on where he'd be doing round-the-clock treatment, flushing the area with time in the pool, on the bike, starting to walk. And once the pain starts to get under control and the inflammation starts to settle, you're hoping that he can actually get moving and start running again. They'll probably use an Ultra-G anti-gravity treadmill to do it at a modified body weight to allow him to get going a bit more and start to flush it out. But he needs to prove fitness by the end of the week. So if it clears up by Thursday, Friday, he'd hopefully be able to get into a bit of a run and a kick and then start to show some signs that he can function, doing ground balls and jumping and kicking across his body like he needs to. And they'll have a fitness test on the day before the game in their captain's run to be able to make sure he can run fast and take contact and is really confident with it to then, pass fit and put the hand up to play.
Is there more risk of injury with those at all, Steve, or is it purely just about mobility and seeing if they can actually run?
The risk of injury is usually, subsequent injury. So if you're not moving that well because you've got a sore hip, you're starting to put load on other areas. So, sometimes you might be at higher risk to do a little calf, particularly like for a veteran athlete like Toby. But the actual trauma of the tissue, you're not typically going to, make the trauma any worse. You can increase the size of the bleed if you start running, too early in the week and make it quite sore. But, he's not going to be at risk of ripping the glute if he's had that contusion. But usually, if you manage it early in the week, then you can get yourself up. Some of these ones can take a bit longer, though.
Brilliant stuff, Steve. Great to chat, mate. We'll talk again next week. I'm probably interested next week to get your thoughts on the bye rounds and the teams managing those players that might just have some of those niggles as well, and how they pull the trigger on sending him for surgery or doing anything like that. So we'll talk through that a little bit more next week, mate. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Brilliant. Steve Gravina there from Frontrunner Physiotherapy in Osborne Park with the latest injury update. Well, it's been another big episode of the Footy Interchange. Terrific to have your company right throughout the episode. We'll be back each and every Tuesday talking all things right around the league. Of course, we'll be back in a couple of days as well with the question portion of this podcast, Scully. And people, of course, can always get involved and drop us a line and we'll answer your questions.
What I love about this show is feedback is forthcoming and never misses the mark. So, look, we've had some editorial mistakes on BackChat's end. Be nice to just get a show cleanly out the door, but we're working on things. You know how we operate here at BackChat.
Right, we just talk a bit of golf and
yeah. There's other people speaking that aren't even in the room and things are getting deleted off YouTube. But you know what? We just keep trucking along. We'll figure it out. Make sure if you do want to keep accessing the question and answer, which is just hanging around because we haven't been able to execute it properly, that will be on Patreon at some point. But look, you know, it might not be. But what you do get if you're a patron, definitely, is first access to questions, and they will be answered every week. We put up on Patreon for our Patreons. On Patreon for our patrons, Jaden. I knew you'd like that one. We put up, basically put your questions in here, and they will be asked and answered every week here on the show.
They certainly will be. Scully, thank you very much. And, great to have everyone's questions coming through and answering them on the podcast as well. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be back again next Tuesday. Thanks, Scully.
Thanks, mate.
Will Schofield there. This has been the Footy Interchange. We'll be working together on the footy on the weekends.
Yes.
Double header. We got 6 p.m. on Friday night. As I tell you your schedule. Yes.
Who's playing?
Will be a big game on Friday night, actually. I've got to double check.
Nice little pad there, Paps. I've got you.
No, it is. It's
there.
Hawthorn and is it the Doggies down in Tassie?
Didn't they just play? Thursday. They just played, I think.
Who am I thinking of? This is going real well.
This is brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, you rarely get to see a beast like this in the wild.
Adelaide.
Adam Papalia, who doesn't know them.
It's Adelaide.
Sucked in. Now you know how I feel every day of my life. I don't know who's playing.
I had a day off, all right? I had a day off. Driven back from Busso this morning.
That's staying in the show. That is probably the first and last time you see Adam Papalia.
I knew it was Hawthorn. I knew it was in Tassie. I just couldn't remember who they're playing against.
Who
But it's
Adelaide.
Adelaide. So
It's going to be a big game.
Friday night.
So we're working on that and then Fox Footy.
Because we've got a double header.
Who's playing
this
that
weekend? Well, North Melbourne's across.
Are we doing 3 games together?
We are. Two at Optus Stadium.
Tuesday was be a debrief. You and I just talking about. I'm Max Gawn. You're Steven May.
Push you in the chest.
Steven May. You're Max Gawn.
We probably look a bit more like Max Gawn.
Yeah, but I act a little bit more like Steven May.
That's very true. All right, we've got to wrap this up. This has been the Footy Interchange. I'm going to go and check the fixtures religiously now. Thank you for your company.